Good morning. Welcome to this circle that gathers again and again, but has never ever before been this particular circle, nor will it ever be again. We are those who constitute this particular spiritual community on this unrepeatable day. And it matters that you've chosen to take your place in the circle. And you have a place, a unique place. And you're welcome in this circle whether you've never been here before, or you haven't been here in a very long time, or you take your place in this circle most of the time that it takes its shape. It's with gratitude that we gather together on this land, acknowledging that it is storied land, the ancestral lands of the Cree peoples of Treaty 6 and the Métis people who have made their home here for generations. We honor the culture, the traditions, the spirituality of our Indigenous brothers and sisters for whom their story is deeply woven into this land. And we acknowledge by gathering here our responsibility to be partners, transcending the wounds of our history and seeking healing and reconciliation. We gather with each other here this day, in this time and place, seeking wisdom, seeking truth. We come here to nurture habits that open us to the sacredness of life. Habits that help us to know the holiness of the world we inhabit and the holiness that inhabits us. We gather in the midst of all that brings light into our lives, the various sources of wisdom that speak eloquently to us, the natural world, the stories of our tradition, of poetry, of music, the teachings of the great spiritual guides of all time, like Jesus of Nazareth, and the lived wisdom that we share with each other, the meaning-making way. We light this candle to honor our spiritual quest, to honor the light that we both seek and celebrate in our evolving tradition, and the light that we seek to reflect in the circles in which we live our lives, in our families, in our workplaces, among our friends, in the communities where we take responsibility or we take our place, our global citizenry. May this time that we spend with each other open us to seek light, to better reflect the light that is within us, and to honor light in one another. So we take this moment to bring ourselves here, to open ourselves to all the places we find light and light finds us.
Let's join our spirits and our voices together as we open ourselves to the intentions we have for this day and for our lives, as we pray these words together. Into this circle we come, opening to the wisdom hidden in words and gestures, songs and silences, readings and reflections, prayers and symbols, wisdom within, between, and beyond us. We gather to be a nurturing and challenging spiritual community. We come seeking to share comfort in the midst of our losses, compassion in the midst of cruelty, justice in the midst of inequity, stillness in the midst of busyness. We gather to honor the wisdom that shapes our living. We come as those seeking the well-being of body, mind, and spirit. Amen.
So I'd like to talk to you today about taking a break. You're all familiar with one of these, right? Maybe not this one, but you have these at home, right? Or 14 of them. So on this one, I just want to show you, there's some buttons here that you probably know. What's this one right here in the middle? This one that has a little triangle. What's that? That's play, yeah. So if you want to play something, you hit that. It doesn't work right now, darn it. And then what's this one right here with two lines? Pause. So I like the pause button. It's good. You know, if I have to go to the bathroom, I can hit the pause button and I don't miss anything. It's great. But also, wouldn't it be fun if we all had a pause button on our bodies? Wouldn't that be neat? If I could hit this, pause, and then everything I'm doing could just kind of stop for a while, wouldn't that be nice? I wonder if our parents would want us to have pause buttons. I could pause you for a while. Freeze tag. So, because sometimes we're too busy. Like we've got too much to do, so we could hit pause. Or sometimes, we have like long runs or long bike rides, and we're tired. Oh, it would be nice to hit pause, right? And then we could catch our breath. Or late at night when we're tired, but we're not home yet. We're just really tired. We don't have our bed yet. We could hit the pause button. That'd be nice, huh? Be great. Well, you know what? We don't really have a pause button, but we can take breaks, right? We can take breaks, and that's a great thing to be able to take a break and to take a pause. And it's kind of a happy day and a sad day for us because it's our last day for a while with Nancy. Nancy is going to take a pause. She's going to take a break. Yeah. And she gets to take a nice long pause, and it's really great because she gets to take a trip. She and Dawn are going to travel a little bit. She's going to take a trip to Africa, a long, long way away. And she gets time to rest and relax, not do too much work, just pause, and it'll be really fantastic for her. So while Nancy's pausing, we'll miss her very much. We will. And we'll also have some help along the way. And you notice there's someone new sitting next to me. I bet you thought, who is that? Well, this is Nell. And Nell is a minister too. And the great thing is she's been part of our church community for almost 2 years, I bet. Almost 3 years she's been here with us. So she knows us, and many of us know her. And you're going to get a chance to see her here and in Kids Spirit and in lots of different places along the way. And the great thing is she can help us, because Nancy gets a pause, but we don't. No, we can take a pause whenever we like, right? Because we can just pretend we have a pause button if we get too busy. So we have a story about this, and Nell is going to read us this story that is all about taking a pause.
All right, this is a book that I thought of when I heard Nancy was going to take a pause, and it's called Jesus' Day Off. So maybe you want to come a little closer because the pictures aren't very big, all right? I'm going to read it for you. Can you see? Can your owl see? Okay, that's good. All right, so Jesus' Day Off. And there's the first page. So this is Jesus. Does that look like you thought Jesus looked like? Well, just the person who wrote this book thought that's what Jesus looked like. There are his friends. He has 12 of them. You see all his friends? Do they all look happy? What do you think? There's one that doesn't look happy. Can you find him? Yeah, he doesn't look very happy. He's kind of cranky, isn't he? All right, let's see what happens next. Jesus could do amazing miracles, and no one could work out how they were done. He also told marvelous stories, all for free. Look what his friends are saying. They're saying, wonderful. They're saying encore, which means more stories. And this guy's saying, I told you he was good. Good stories. Each day, he worked hard to make everything around him beautiful. Look at that. Candy, flowers, birds, lots of colors. Think that's beautiful? I'm not too sure. Do you think it's beautiful? No? Well, beauty is different things to different people. Until one day, Jesus woke up exhausted from saving the world. He was so tired. That day, the miracles didn't go quite so well. Look what happened. He was trying to walk on the water, and he kind of started to sink. And he's trying to remember a story, and he goes, well, is it then he saith, or was it she saith? He couldn't quite remember how the story went. Stories didn't go so well. The next morning, Jesus went to the doctor. After examining Jesus, the doctor advised, take the day off, Jesus. Relax. Enjoy yourself. Sit in the sun. So Jesus told his friends what the doctor had ordered and then went out for a walk. It was a lovely, cloudless day. First of all, he did cartwheels right across the desert. Do you know how to do cartwheels? Yeah. I was very happy. Then he played catch with his halo. And then he had a picnic. And look, he's got some wine to drink. And there's 2 fish and 5 breads there, right? And the birds are eating the crumbs. After that, he had a refreshing swim. So he left his clothes on the shore so they wouldn't get wet, and his halo so it wouldn't get lost. And then he went on a long donkey ride, something he always enjoyed. See that? Yeah. Good sound effects. Oh, he's losing his halo, isn't he? Oh dear.
The bumps were.
Do you think the bumps got the halo? Could be. It had been a wonderful day, but towards the end, as Jesus sat in the sun, Jesus suddenly felt sad. For really, the day had been wasted and he hadn't helped anyone. In fact, he felt so bad he decided to go home and tell his mom and dad. His parents encouraged him, though. They told him to think about all the fun things he did on his day off, and they wondered if he might be able to tell some great stories about that day that would help his friends. So you see, sometimes when you're feeling better yourself, you can only make others feel better too. Jesus knew that as usual, his mom and dad were right. Thanks, Mom and Dad, he said. When Jesus got home, his friends were so happy to see him, looking so well, they cooked him a delicious supper. See all his friends? Just see one that's a bit cranky. Yeah, he's a bit cranky again, isn't he? That night, after he'd said his prayers, Jesus slept soundly. Are they all sleeping soundly? He's not again. Can you read what his name is? Judas, yeah. He's kind of the cranky pants, isn't he? The next morning, Jesus was glad he'd taken a rest. He had this funny feeling there was a lot more good work to be done. And that's the end of the story.
Reading from the writings of Omid Safi, a columnist whose work appears in a blog called On Being. He's also a university instructor, a Muslim man, a spiritual seeker. And these are his thoughts on the disease of being busy. I saw a dear friend a few days ago. I stopped by to ask her how she was doing, how her family was. She looked up, voice lowered, and just whimpered, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. I have so much going on. Almost immediately after, I ran into another friend and I asked how he was, and again, the same tone, same response. I'm just so busy, got so much to do. The tone was exacerbated, tired, even overwhelmed. And it's not just adults. When we moved to North Carolina about 10 years ago, we were thrilled to be moving to a city with a great school system. We found a diverse neighborhood filled with families. Everything felt good, felt right. After we settled in, we went to one of the friendly neighbors asking if their daughter and our daughter could get together and play. And the mother, a really lovely person, reached for her phone, pulled out her calendar function. She scrolled and scrolled and scrolled, and she finally said, she has a 45-minute opening 2.5 weeks from now. The rest of the time, it's gymnastics, piano, voice lessons. She's just so busy. Horribly destructive habits start early, really early. How did we end up living like this? How did we do this to ourselves? Why do we do it to our children? When did we forget that we are human beings, not human doings? Whatever happened to a world in which kids get muddy, get dirty, get messy, and heavens get bored? Do we love our children so much that we overschedule them, making them stressed and busy, just like us? What happened to a world in which we can sit with the people we love so much and have slow conversations about the state of our heart and soul, conversations that slowly unfold, conversations with pregnant pauses and silences we're in no rush to fill? How did we create a world in which we have more and more and more to do with less time for leisure, less time for reflection, less time for community, less time just to be? Somewhere we read the unexamined life is not worth living for a human. How are we supposed to live, to examine, to be, to become, to be fully human when we're so busy? The disease of being busy, and let's call it what it is, the dis-ease of being busy when we are never at ease, is spiritually destructive to our health and well-being. It saps our ability to be fully present with those we love the most in our families and keeps us from forming the kind of community that we so desperately crave. We need a different relationship to work, to technology. We know what we want: a meaningful life, a sense of community, a balanced existence. It's not just about leaning in or faster iPhones. We want to be truly human. And it doesn't have to be this way. In many Muslim cultures, when you ask somebody what they're doing, you ask in Arabic, Kif halik? How is your hal? What's this hal we're inquiring about? It is the transient state of one's heart. In reality, we're asking, how is your heart doing at this very moment, at this very breath? When I ask, how are you? That's what I want to know. I'm not asking how many things are on your to-do list or how many items are in your inbox. I just want to know how your heart's doing at this very moment. Tell me, is your heart joyous? Tell me, is your heart aching? Is it sad? Does it crave human touch? Tell me you remember. You're still a human being, not a human doing. This is the inspiration of a contemporary writer.
A second reading, a poem by Mary Oliver entitled The Invitation. Oh, do you have time to linger for just a little while out of your busy and very important day for the goldfinches? They've gathered in a field of thistles for a musical battle. to see who can sing the highest note or the lowest, or the most expressive of mirth or the most tender. Their song, blunt beaks drink the air as they strive melodiously, not for your sake and not for mine, and not for the sake of winning, but for sheer delight and gratitude. Believe us, they say, it is a serious thing just to be alive on this fresh morning in this broken world. I beg of you, do not walk by without pausing to attend to this rather ridiculous performance. It could mean something. It could mean everything. It could be what Rilke meant when he wrote, "You must change your life." This is the wisdom of a contemporary poet. May we find wisdom.
Two places in the ancient texts that we call the Hebrew scriptures, the Jewish scriptures that have become part of the Jewish Christian scriptures, we have a statement of those things that we have named the Ten Commandments. This is Exodus' statement of one of those we know well, from Exodus 20. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall do all your work, but the seventh is a Sabbath. You shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your slave or your livestock or the resident alien that lives in your towns. For in 6 days, in the world of the story, the heavens and earth were made, the sea and all that is in them. And on the seventh day, it was a day of rest. Therefore, it is blessed as the Sabbath day and honored. This is part of an ancient law passed down to us in the sacred texts of the Jewish scriptures. There are very few things I do religiously in my life. There are even very few things I manage to do the same way twice. I can't even sustain a pattern cutting the grass in our small yard. I get bored repeating the same lines back and forth or up and down, and I have to deviate. But one of the things I have done repeatedly, religiously, every year that we have been together as Southminster Steinhauer United Church, is to devote one Sunday in every 52 Sundays to invite us to focus on the ancient practice of keeping Sabbath. Among all the practices that I most envy in other wisdom traditions, I think the ritual of observing Sabbath is the one I envy the most. Last fall, when I joined Dawn in Jerusalem for part of my study leave, it was that kind of time away when you lose track of the calendar and you lose track of what day it is and what date it is. But I recognized Sabbath by the silence. There weren't any buses laboring up the hill outside our apartment. There were no horns blaring. There was no traffic whizzing by to the settlements above us. The construction noise in the property adjacent to us stopped. The heavy equipment was all abandoned. Even the daily tear gas set off by the Israeli army in the refugee camp below us in Bethlehem missed its 3 p.m. appointment for that day. The world around me paused in its production and in its consumption and even in its destruction. There's a kind of toxicity that accumulates in a society that never stops. A toxin that breeds in that 24/7 environment that's always open, always available, always on, always doing. And maybe desert dwellers learned this sooner than others of us. Maybe those of our ancients that lived in a context where the work of finding food and drink in such a harsh and competitive environment that consumed every waking hour, maybe they woke up to the wisdom that persuaded them that they needed a social convention, a spiritual practice to rest the land, to rest the animals, to rest themselves. For our Jewish cousins, the Sabbath is a palace in time. Every 6 days of working sun up to sundown, there comes a seventh day just to be in the sun or be out of the sun. A day unlike the others. A day to pause from the work, the very sacred work of building the world, to the holy work of tending the soul. It's a practice that gets prescribed in two really different ways in our Jewish scriptures. It's a practice that's set in that great epic poem we read, that referred to a moment ago in the Exodus version that we read. That great epic poem of creation that prescribes Sabbath as a way to keep production and consumption in some kind of sustainable balance. To keep some rhythm between work and rest, between a time to build and a time to sit back and behold. A time to pause in the cycle of production. To rest as though all your work had been done in the previous 6 days. Did you hear that in that Exodus reading? 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. How many days would we need to be given to do all our work? And what would it take for us to decide that indeed we'd been given enough time to do all our work? Imagine the spiritual discipline of stopping and acting like everything that needs to be done is done. That there's nothing left on the to-do list. To stop for 24 hours and act like there's nothing more important in the world to do than to light a candle and say a prayer. To watch the sunset. To linger over a good meal. To sleep without setting an alarm. To gather with good friends and sing and pray. To walk, nowhere in particular. Just to walk, not to raise our heart rate or get some exercise or be somewhere. Just to walk and notice every smell and every color and every creature and every texture. Just to appreciate what's around us on this perfect day, this seventh day, to step out so that we can step back into the rhythm of production and consumption for another 6 days with a different sense of its purpose, of its importance, of its place. A way to remind ourselves that we're human beings, not human doings. In the second prescription we get for Sabbath, which comes in the book of Deuteronomy, Sabbath is a practice designed to preserve freedom. In that context, it's anchored in the great epic of Exodus, getting out from under the control of Pharaoh, of being emancipated from slavery. So to keep the Sabbath in that context is to keep life from becoming tyrannical, from being in bondage to our smartphones and our pagers and our inbox and our Facebook account and our calendars and our watches and our bank accounts and our mortgages, to name just a few of our masters. And of course, that prescription for Sabbath isn't just for us. It's for our household, our employees, our co-workers, our land, our livestock, even for the stranger that lives near us. For the employees with the least seniority who always have to work the undesirable shifts. It's pausing for freedom for our own sake and for the sake of whoever and whatever we put at our service. So it is that an observant Jew will begin to unplug 22 minutes before sundown on the 6th day of the week, and will light 2 candles. One to remember that Sabbath is prescribed for a pause for rest, and a second to remember that Sabbath is prescribed as a practice that celebrates freedom. And we'll light those candles as a way of welcoming Sabbath, and we'll not light a fire again for 24 hours. We'll unplug from using energy to cook or clean. We'll unplug from competitive sports and working, and we'll enjoy a long meal with friends and family. We'll sleep long and well and rise to eat a cold breakfast. We'll observe a carbon Sabbath and walk to the synagogue to sing and pray with others. We'll eat leftovers for lunch so no one has to work. We'll spend the afternoon socializing or in solitude, napping, walking, reading, playing non-competitive games, and then we'll farewell the Sabbath with a song of longing for the next one. It's a practice that still thrives in many variations in Jewish communities all over the world without any social endorsement, without a Lord's Day Act or any other legislation to enforce its practice. One of the great gifts of employment in the United Church of Canada is the opportunity to have a 3-month Sabbath after every 5 years of service. Ironically, in order to be granted a sabbatical, you have to make a proposal about what you plan to do. So I found myself describing what it is I plan to do over the next 3 months, just as I engage all of my colleagues who've come back from sabbatical by asking them, what did you do on your sabbatical? But then I also meet myself in the mirror and remind myself how I might actually learn to practice Sabbath on my sabbatical. to practice living in ways that will restore a sense of being a human being, not a human doing. And maybe that's the real opportunity in having a sabbatical. And truly, isn't keeping Sabbath really about cultivating any practice in our lives which reconnects us with our consciousness of the kind of creature we are? We dwell in the sacredness of time. Isn't practicing Sabbath less about stepping out of time and doing something special on any particular occasion? Isn't it about honoring the sacredness of being in time, of being alive on this fresh morning in this broken world? A practice we observe not one day in 7, a practice we observe over and over again every day. Maybe Sabbath is best practiced as a daily sacrament of lingering for just a little while out of our busy and very important day. For whatever beauty or pain would stop us in our tracks to honor the sacredness of being alive. Whatever calls us into that divine vocation of being human. So here we are with each other in this moment where we have nothing but this time on our hands and nothing but this stillness in this place to celebrate the sacrament of Sabbath, the holiness of just being here, the invitation to restore balance and freedom and being human, and to consider how to be Sabbath people every day. Not on our annual vacation, not on the long weekend, not on our day off, not in the exceptional of life, but how to live with Sabbath consciousness, to cultivate the practices that cause us every day to stop and look and listen, and to find the holiness there is in being alive.
May we take this moment and may we breathe. In this life of spiritual adventure and in this circle of safe exploration and soul work, we focus ourselves, we calm our bodies, and we pray ourselves into a place and state of balance. We choose wholeness and we affirm our need for well-being. And as we pray that we might live our lives mindfully, choosing our daily activities, choosing our words, choosing our understandings that might heal and uplift ourselves and others. Might we accept with love every part of our body, and even recognize that the blood in our veins can flow with pure joy. When it doesn't feel this way, because of imbalance in our health, because of circumstances of life and our world, because of the complexity of our body, mind, and spirit, may strength and wholeness and the fullness of time return to us. As we seek an ever more balanced life, we seek to right the imbalances, to ponder our time, our energy, our work, our play, our relationships, our solitude, to ponder them, to understand where we might act and where we might simply be. In these places we bring our awareness and know that in each effort and in each day we will be surrounded by loving and healing people, as well as loving and healing energy. Indeed, we are vibrantly healthy and radiantly beautiful people, all of us, all of humanity, all of creation. And this we will live in the many moments of today. We have great gratitude for the sacred presence within us, among us, and around us that encourages us to the restoration of health and wholeness, to the ability to love and to be loved in return. For our place in this sacredness, as those having found it and ever seeking it, we pray in the spirit of love and community. May it be so.
This is our opportunity to recognize that the light always goes with us. Going into our week, in our homes, in our work, in our circles of families and friends, and further too. This light goes with you, Nancy and Dawn, on your travels to Africa, in your learning, in your exploring, in your pressing of the pause button, in your rest and relaxation, and in your sabbatical. The light of wisdom and the light of care go with you as it goes with each of us. It's a time for us to recognize that we're all connected. All of us connected in sacredness, we go with that connection and the spirit within us to embrace this life, to embrace all of our wonderful days, to embrace that we are connected despite it might be a while until we see each other again. And so as the light goes with you, it goes with all of us. And may we all go in peace.